Okay, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to Tanya Outside In. We're in the middle of Perek Daled. I'm not going to give a quick recap on the past few chapters because I just want to jump straight in. We've introduced what we've called the Levushim. Okay, now let me just turn on my Mazgan. Do you see the Mishal? Oh, here it is. The Levushim, we translate the word in Hebrew. Levushim are garments, but really, the best translation is behavior. Levushim is behavior. So I just want to give you a quick point. Oh, Gabriel's just in time for this. He'll appreciate this. If there's someone that you love that has no need whatsoever, how could you? Where could you meet them? You're not necessary to them in any way, shape, or form. Where would the point of contact begin? I suppose you could ask them questions. You could receive gifts from them. But you're not, there isn't a place of contact. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is that Hashem, I don't know if you can say created, I don't know what the word to say is, but he created, again, I don't know if you can say created. He came up with the concept of Ratzon Hashem. Ratzon Hashem means that he wants something. Without that, there could be no point of contact. There would be no merging. There could be no merging. Now, even more than this, though, Ratzon Hashem in itself, as a singular Ratzon, just some kind of desire or want, is also kind of untouchable. So what he did was he clothed that in the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. These have become Ratzon Hashem. So Hashem wants us to put on tefillin, Hashem wants us to give tzedakah, Hashem wants us to keep Shabbos, Hashem wants us to learn Torah, v'chulei, yeah? Now, by doing these acts, they're not our acts. They're not our commandments. They're his commandments. They're his Ratzon. But now, by me putting on tefillin, or by me giving tzedakah, or by me learning Torah, I can become enclosed in his Ratzon because they're his acts. And like, I don't know if we've said this before, but I know Michael's heard this before. We've spoken about the idea of becoming a part of the mitzvah as opposed to doing a mitzvah. So we'll go through it again. I know some of you have heard it, but it's an incredibly important idea. It's one of the most important things that I can say, I think, is that a mitzvah is comprised of 4 coordinates: time, space, energy, and matter. Every mitzvah has got a coordinate in time, space, energy, and matter. The space one, since the Churban Bayis Sheni, is less than the other ones maybe, but still, if you were to write down the time, space, energy, matter coordinate of every mitzvah, you would have the Shulchan Aruch. That's what the Shulchan Aruch is. So, for example, tefillin, yeah, the time is the daytime. The place is, let's say, it's on your arm as opposed to on your leg, yeah. The energy, or the matter is the physical boxes of the tefillin, yeah, and the energy is the Jewish energy. So now, if you have you put it on the arm, it's kosher tefillin, it's a Jew doing it, but you're doing it at night time. There was no mitzvah. Ratzon Hashem didn't happen. Now it's daytime, but you're putting the tefillin on your leg. And it's good tefillin, and it's you. Again, nothing happened. Okay, now it's daytime. You're putting them on your arm, but this time they're puzzled to fill in. They're not the right matter. And it's you doing it. Nothing happened. And now we've got, it's daytime. You're doing it, the person's doing it on his arm. They're kosher to fill in, but he's not Jewish. Again, no mitzvah happened. Maybe you even have to kill it. That's the energy. It needs the Jewish energy. So when you look at a mitzvah like this, you realize you're not doing a mitzvah. You don't do a mitzvah. You become a chalik of the mitzvah. The mitzvah is far greater than us. The mitzvahs are Ratzon Hashem. We become a chalik in the mitzvah. That's how we touch the Ribono Shel Olam. That's how creation touches Hashem, is through Ratzon Hashem. So the behaviors of thought, speech, and action, those are the behaviors that we bring to the mitzvah. The mitzvahs they need a time, they need a place, they need a matter, and then they need a thought, speech, or action from the Jew. So that's the clothing. That's where we contact the Ribono Shel Olam. Okay? So when we're talking about the big day, the begadim of the soul, is we're talking about thought, speech, and action. When it's to do with Torah, it's thought, speech, and action in Torah and mitzvahs. And that is our point of contact with Hashem. We could talk about begadim for ages and ages, but we're gonna keep moving a little bit. So we finished off here by explaining that when the Jew is involved in a mitzvah, the actual one performing the mitzvah is elevated. That doesn't make sense, because how can it be that the garments are more valuable than the one wearing the garments? That doesn't make any sense at all. Obviously, the personality, the one behind the one who's wearing the garments, is more relevant than the garments, but not in this case. When the garments are Torah and mitzvahs, and they're Ratzon Hashem enclosed in the mitzvahs of the Torah, and him and his Ratzon are one, that means our Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama actually gets an aliyah when it becomes enclosed in these garments. People with me? Yeah? Okay.
No, please repeat that.
Repeat what?
What's weird about the thing being elevated more than...
So what would you say is more relevant? You or your garments? What's Iker? What's Toffel?
You.
Of course. So how can it be that when I wear certain garments, I actually get elevated so that the garments are intrinsically more holy than I am, and I get elevated to the garments? That doesn't make any sense. But when we understand that the garments are Hashem's mitzvahs, and him and his mitzvahs are one, now it makes sense. I'm becoming enclosed in Hashem. This is the whole inyan of the talus. I'm becoming enclosed in the Ribono Shel Olam. You need to really think about this, because that means when we do a mitzvah, like to be enclosed in talus and tefillin and sitting there like with your feet up or with your hands behind, that doesn't make any sense. To not wash your hands before, I mean, sometimes you can't, but to try and do everything you can to connect to what's actually happening. You're becoming enclosed in the Ribono Shel Olam himself. Wouldn't you like wash your hands, or make sure you're not thinking bad stuff, or turn off the telephone, or v'chule? You can think of the simple actions you can do to just get this into your head. You're not feeling it because we're caught up in all loads of other stuff. The big tzaddikim, they do feel what's going on. Yeah, they do feel what's happening in a mitzvah, but we don't feel it. Okay, but at least now that we know what's actually happening, at least try and kind of, what's the word? Engineer the odds to engineer the odds that you might actually have an experience. Treat it with utter respect, with utter respect. Every mitzvah we're involved in, whether it's giving tzedakah, or whether it's Shabbos, or whether it's mikveh, or blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah, any mitzvah, when it's a mitzvah d'oraisa, you are becoming enclosed in the Ribbono Shel Olam, enclosed in him, enclosed in the Maaseh mitzvah. But just like your wife, when your wife desires lahavdil, your wife wants the trash to be taken out. Now you can look at this as, I'm just taking out the trash. Or you could actually perceive it, and I try and do this as much as possible. You can look at it as, this is my wife. This act of taking out the trash is an expression of my wife. This is something my wife wants, and I'm doing that. Oh, you want like these big, you want to see the light and feel the fire and hear the angels playing the harps and stuff, yeah? Okay, that's nice, but that doesn't touch the fact that this is what my wife wants, and I'm touching that. More than touching that, I'm actually doing that. That's amazing. That's amazing with your wife. Kal v'chomer, when you're talking about the Ribbono Shel Olam. He actually wants us to put on tefillin. You realize, like, I joke about this sometimes, my minion, like I try and be mishazek people, and many times I've gone up to people who are just about to put on their tefillin, and I whisper in there something like, if you knew what was happening now, you'd push it faint. You wouldn't be able to pull the strap. As you pull the strap, as the Nekudas Achalas mitzvah, you'd just go and explode, Just to talk like that, to think like that. I know we don't feel it, but that's it gets us excited, and it's worthy of being excited about, because it's mamash real, whether you feel it or not. That's exactly what's happening. It's like I joked one time, when you go to the dentist and they do the X-ray, and then they cover your private parts with that like heavy metal thing. You know what I'm talking about? So it's like, what do you feel? Nothing. The guy, it's like you go in the room, they make you feel like it's all like really official and whatever. They put that thing over your midsection, and then they go out of the room, and then you hear and you're like, that's nothing. You didn't need to go out of the room, you didn't need to put this thing on my lap, you didn't need to tell them nothing. Yeah, but they did. Just because you didn't feed it, it doesn't make a difference. Something happened there. And this lahavdil, elef alfa elafim havdalas, when we're doing a mitzvah, any mitzvah mamash, any mitzvah. I used to do a thing with my kids when we'd put tzedakah in, to try and drag out that moment of the coin dropping out of your fingers as much as you can, and just be there as the coin's dropping out of your fingers. I felt that was that really helps us to touch the mitzvah. And now what we're learning is the mitzvah is the Ribbono Shel Olam, and it encloses us, and we'll hear what the difference is between learning Torah and mitzvahs. So that's where we're holding. We mentioned also the idea of the Averas is a different inyan, but the Averas, when we're over on any of the 365 negative mitzvahs, that's where the Klipa and Sitra Achra get their chiyas from. And basically, without getting into too much of detail, go on, anyone you can throw out an idea here. What do you think would be the ramifications, Lamaisa, of the Klipa and Sitra Achra getting more energy? What would that look like in this world?
Los Angeles.
Not on Pico. So it basically looks as everything bad. Everything that isn't Givaldic is because of Klipa and Sitra Achra. All it's really selfishness. It means the more Klipa and Sitra Achra there is in the world, the more selfish the world has become. the more aveiros we do, the more selfishness we bring to the world. And everyone knows that selfishness is just the most disgusting. It's just the most disgusting thing there is. Absolutely repugnant. It's revolting. Like to meet a real narcissist. If you meet a real narcissist, yeah, you just want to get as far away from that person as possible. That's klipa v'sitrachon. So we don't want to do that. Hashem hates it as well. Okay. So we're at the bottom of page Ches. First one is Lo Sase. V'hinei. Shloish levushim elu me'atorah mitzvah. Now we're just going to basically, we spoke this out now. Now the Rebbe is going to say it for us. These three levushim of the Torah and the mitzvahs and its mitzvahs, avshnikrim levushim, even though they're called garments, lenefesh ruach neshama, to the nefesh ruach neshama, im kol zeh, even so, gova godla malasam le'ein kates v'soif or malas nefesh ruach neshama atzman. They are infinitely higher than the nefesh ruach neshama themselves. Now let me ask you a question. Now, there's a lot of people who bring the pasuk, or not the pasuk, the chazal, Yisrael kuluchad. But from the best of my knowledge, that isn't actually a chazal, and that was coined by the tzaddikim from the Baal Shem Tov, the Talmidei Baal Shem Tov. The actual, it doesn't say that in the Zohar. It says kulechad. Now we do know that Yisrael Oiraisa Kuchabrichu Kulechad. So how comes he says that the levushim of the Torah are infinitely higher than the nefesh, ruach, and neshama? Didn't we just say that Yisrael are at the same level as the Torah and of Oiraisa and Kuchabrichu and Yisrael Kulechad? So how can it be that the Torah is called infinitely higher than the nefesh, ruach, and neshama? Gabriel, you have an answer to this? Or Mike or anyone? No? It's a good question. So the diaks in the Loshen, it says the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Remember, we have the chaya and the yechida. It's the yechida that is echad with kudsha b'rechu v'oraisa. The neshama is already a much lower level, which is already a created. When we're talking about the hishtalshlus of the neshama, you have the essence of the neshama, which is echad with oiraisa v'kudsha b'rechu, and then you have the madregas that go lower down, and the madregas that get clothed in the mitzvah are the nefesh, ruach, and neshama, and those levels are infinitely lower because they are of creation than the Torah itself. Clear? Is that clear? Yeah? Okay. Perish. The Torah, everyone should also just question why we call it Oiraisa. We just call it the light. The light. That's a very important point. We call it light. You know what light? Light is the inyan of hispashtus, of coming out. There's the or, and then there's the mu'or. There's the luminary, and then there's the light that exudes from it. So the reason why we call the Torah Oiraisa is because that's the expression of the Ribbono Shel Olam. Light is expression, so it's his expression. That's why we call it Oiraisa. It's the Chochma and the Ratzon of the Ribbono Shel Olam. V'Kodesh Baruch Hu b'chvodo v'atzma kulu chad, and Hashem is entirely one. So he's also one with his Ratzon and his Chochma. Ki hi yodeya v'huamad v'hudeya, as the Rambam says. I'm not going to get into that now. He's the knowledge, the one who knows, and he's all one. Everything's one in him. Le'ele b'shem Rambam. V'af the Kodesh Baruch Hu nikra ein soif. Even though a Kodesh Baruch Hu is called Ein Sof, that's not a name, by the way. That level has there's no names. Names don't begin until a lot lower down. Ein Sof is not a name. Ein Sof is a way of referring to something that's nameless. It's important to know that. Things like Atik Yomin and and Erech Ampin, these Kabbalistic names are also, a lot of these things are referring to things that don't have names. It sounds funny because, well, that's its name. No, it's essentially nameless. It doesn't have a name. We just use a word to refer to it. That's different than a name. Very different. That's like calling you something else. Okay. What he's trying to bring us to now is the idea that we have there's nothing you can say about Ribono Shel Olam. There's nothing you can know about him. Everything you know about the Ribono Shel Olam is absolutely and utterly wrong. There is no searching his knowledge. The one who searches him is going to find him. My machshavas are not like your machshavas. He's trying to show us that the Ribono Shel Olam is so different, so far, so removed from us, so alien to us. He's creator. We're created. It's like, we've said many times, it's like Mario and Luigi having some kind of intellectual appreciation for Shigeru Yamauchi, or as I got corrected in LA, that was the guy who invented the Nintendo. But then there was the guy who invented the Mario and Luigi. The guy actually knew his name. That was very impressive. Anyway, that guy, what kind of musag does Mario and Luigi have of Shigeru Yamauchi, even so, or me, or anyone, the guy playing the game? Obviously nothing. But something, so he's just absolutely unknowable. He's completely removed from us. In the place that you find the greatness of Hashem, there you find his anivus, meaning, if you think you just saw something fantastic about the Ribono Shel Olam, you should know it is the most teeny, weeny, infinitely minuscule, keep saying that forever, revelation of the Ribono Shel Olam. There could be nothing smaller. What you think is the most unbelievable manifestation of Hashem's greatness, like, for example, the sun. He created the sun. Yeah? That is... Go check out the sun. Spend 5 minutes on Wikipedia researching what the sun is, yeah? And he made that. He made the human brain. Yeah, another. Spend 5 minutes looking at stuff about the human brain, yeah? You'll fall on your face, mamash. And if you don't, there's something wrong with you. And that is the most teeny weeny minuscule revelation of his greatness there could be. It's absolutely nothing. It's like lahavdil. It's not like this, but just the idea is like, imagine one of your little kids, Bill Gates takes him to he's old school now. Elon Musk takes him to a candy shop and buys him the big cola bottle instead of, you would usually buy him like the little ones. He buys him like the big jelly one, that big massive one that takes you like 5 minutes to eat, as opposed to the little one. And he's like, oh, but you see that? He just bought me the big one. He must be so rich. Or like I said about Rav Malinowitz, alav shalom, is a rabbi of mine from a few years ago, when I first made tshuva, and we went on it was like I'd made tshuva, I'd been Baal tshuva for a couple of months. We went on a holiday with Aish, and he didn't have a siddur for Ma'ariv, for Mincha. And I saw him saying Ashrei Baal Peh. And I turned around to my friend and I was like, wow, you see that? Anyway, okay. So that any revelation of Hashem is by definition his anivus. Then he goes on, that some say HaKadosh Baruch Hu and that absolutely unfathomableness that created the sun, and that was just like for him, yeah? That same being, he constricted himself and stooped himself in to Torah and mitzvahs and all of their pratim, the tzirufi oisius Tanakh, and the combinations of the letters of Tanakh, the Duruseihen, the Durushuseihen, the others, Agadas, Midrashe Chachmeinu Zal, and in all the drashas and in the Agadas and in the Midrashim of the Chachamim, he put himself into it. Yeah. Bichdei, why? Shakol neshama, that every neshama, meaning the intellect, or ruach v'nefesh shebaguf, even the ruach and the nefesh, which means the emotions and the behavioral aspect of you, shebaguf ha'adam, toichol asigan badata, it can mamash grasp Hashem on the level of das, become merged with Hashem, l'kayaman, kol masha'ef shl'kayim, and to be makayim them, and whatever is available to be makayim them, b'maisa dibo machshava, v'oidei zeh, and through that, the 10 powers of the soul, from Chochmah down to Malchus, meaning the intellect, the emotions, and the behavioral aspects of the soul, becomes completely consumed within, enclosed within Hashem himself. So what we just spoke about, removing Hashem from our concept of understanding in every single way, because he's absolutely unfathomable, all of that he made available to your hands, not just to your mind, not just to your heart, but your hands can grasp that being that created the sun, the Kol Tzava'av. Your hands can grasp it. Like he says later on in the next Sefer, the idea of like talking about grasping a davar musk, how do you like an intellectual idea with your hands, feeling an idea with your hands. That doesn't make any sense. You use your hands to feel hard, solid things. Yeah, you use your emotions to feel emotions, and you use your intellect to grasp intelligence. But we're talking about grasping the Ribbono Shel Olam. Hashem brought himself so low that we can grasp him in our hands by doing mitzvahs maisius. That's an amazing idea, no? That's just a mind-blowing thought. That when you're putting that coin in tzedakah, you're, so to speak, touching Hashem with your hands. The being that your mind can't even begin to say that forever, to understand, you can touch with your hands. That's what the Torah did for us. That's why it says the Yored al Har. He came down on the Har. He brought himself down to our hands. That's mitzvahs maisius. And therefore the Torah is analogized to mayim. Just like mayim flows from a high place to a low place, so too the Torah flows, just like water flows from a high place to a low place, so too the Torah flows from the place of his covered. What's the kisei covered? What's the olam that we call the kisei? Bria. So what's the covered? If kisei covered is Bria, what's the covered? Atzilus. Very good. Atzilus.
Kisei covered is
the kisei covered is the kisei for his covered. That's Bria. So the covered itself is Atzilus. So that's what he says here. That it's coming down from Atzilus. He says it with Kinui. This is another thing about Tanya, by the way, just a side point. When you really get into Tanya, he like talks in code that you start to chup and you feel very close to the Rebbe. Because it's like, imagine you sit there with your friend and your friend like winks at you and says like the watermelon, and it reminds you of that whole story that happened with the watermelon in 2005, whatever. And it's just you and him, and you both smile at each other. So you get that feeling with the Rebbe as you get this safer clearer and clearer. That was a little taste of that. Just makam kavoidoi. So it goes down. from the Makam of Kvoid, Shehi Ratzoin v'Hakmaso Yizbrach, V'Oirais v'Gudja Brichu Kul Echad, V'Leis Machshava Tefisa Beiklau, that being that you've got no connection to whatever, flow down. Why is the moshel water? The moshel's water because water doesn't change. The water coming from the source in the Himalayas and the water in the Ganges where it finally gets to is the same water. It just picked up sediment, but it's the same water. It's been mixed up with some stuff. But you know what the amazing thing about water is as well? What?
Snow and ice change.
Oh, that's a different. We're talking about water flowing down. So nice you could talk about maybe, but the idea is that water doesn't change. Meaning, what it is in the highest place, it's picked up sediment when it lands in the lowest place. But what's the amazing thing about water? Is you can distill it. It's amazing. Like even salt. Like I have a friend who tells me about all this stuff. The on a molecular level, water basically doesn't interact with anything. So you can always distill water. All what happens is water gets mixed up with stuff. It never actually metabolizes into something else. So all you need to do is apply a little bit of heat and you end up with clean water again. The Tzemach Tzedek said, what's that flame? That flame is Hasidus. What's the dirt? The filth is the filth of Yesh that got mixed in with the Torah. All of the selfish reasons why we're involved in the Torah, that like dirties it up. But the Torah is still pristine and beautiful, and that fire of Hasidus is what burns off the Yesh and allows you to get back to that pristine, clear water, which is the Rebbeinu Sholem himself, Mamash. And it comes down through, this is just kind of poetry, I'm not going to go into this, from hidden levels, from levels down, to the different down levels, descending levels of the world, until it becomes enclosed in physical things of this world, mitzvahs of Torah, that are the majority of the Torah, kakulam kahilchoisehem, almost exclusively, gashmias b'dyoy, our sefer esem v'arba svarim, and in the actual physical letters that are written in the 24 books of the Torah, Shabbat and Nevi'im Ketuvim, Kedei Shetahei Kol Machshava Tefisa Ben, so that the Machshava can be Toifes in them. So the Machshava is Toifes in Hashem through Yediyas Torah, through understanding the Torah. So the mind can't understand God. All the thoughts you have about God, they're all fun and nice, and enjoy them and have, that's cool. Yeah, that's good. It's good. But don't think that's God. That's just your dimyonis. Yeah, you want to think about God? Yeah, think about the halachas of tzitzis. That's so funny. that's your mind being immersed, being consumed in God. Thinking about angels and creating, beautiful pictures in your mind and all that kind of stuff, that's nice. That might be the mitzvah of Yichud Hashem if you do it in a certain way or whatever. But really grasping God with your mind is a shor naga para. Those are the inyan of that.
Didn't we just see you have to do his bonus and how great God is?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the purpose of that? Just to remind you how much you know nothing about God?
Yeah.
Stop thinking about him and do mitzvahs?
No, because that gives you the like learning Hilchos Tzitzis doesn't get your emotions into it unless you're on a very, very high level. Whereas using your dimyon to create these ideas, to put these ideas out that we're talking about right now, like I just spent 15 minutes going to town on this idea of being enclosed in God, yeah, with the exclusive purpose of trying to get us a little bit excited, me included. That doesn't happen from learning halachas. So his boinaness is essential for the halachas so that you do it properly. But that isn't it. Really, the it is the. I mean, again, it depends what you're learning. It could be that you're mamash learning, like most of the times you're actually learning Torah, so you are doing it. But some kind of meditation itself to get some kind of feeling of how great God is, that could just be a hachana for the mitzvah of limud Torah. But the limud Torah itself, no matter what you're learning about, again, keep that in mind. You could be learning about the most ridiculous, teeny weeny prat of a halacha that you're never ever going to come to touch, and it will never happen anyway. The Rebbeinu Shalom is still there. Your mind is still mamash consumed within the Rebbeinu Shalom. It grasps the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's what he says. Va'afilu b'chinas diba or ma'aser shlemata. Shlemata m'madreigas ha'machshava tefisa behen. And like I said, even your thought and your action can be toifes, can grasp the Rebbeinu Shalom. And since that the Torah and its mitzvahs enclose the 10 powers of the soul, meaning the entirety of the goof of the soul, so to speak, its intellect and its midas. Yeah, and v'kol taya gever meroish v'adragla haray kula tzrua b'tzrua chayim es Hashem mamash. The Hashem mamash makifa umalbishim aroish v'adragla. The neshama becomes absolutely and utterly bound up in Hashem Himself mamash. He says, the Hashem mamash makifa umalbishim aroish v'adragla. Kamoisha kasav tsui echsaboy. Like you surround me like my shield. And like a shield, your ratzon surrounds me. That's the Torah and mitzvahs that are malubish in the things of this world. Let's try and finish. So you realize you're touching Him. Now listen to where he goes with this, and this is Peladim. Therefore, Chazal said, therefore, one moment of Torah and of tshuva and ma'asim tovim in this world are worth more than all of the life of Olam Haba. Why? Ki Olam Haba hu shenen meziv shchina. That the Torah, the pleasure of the Olam Haba, and Olam Haba, you have to know, is used. I think the Ramchal, when he's referring to Olam Haba, is talking about a very different thing. By the way, Gavri, I want to talk to you about that. I think I came to some kind of what's the word? I think they're saying, yeah, I think they're saying the same thing. I'll talk to you about that later. Anyway, but Shenena Meziva Shechina. Shutainuka Hasaga. That's Tainuga Hasaga, meaning that the pleasure of Gan Eden is the pleasure of understanding God, not through the Torah, but understanding Him. Nivra, and it's impossible for any created being, even from the highest created beings, Lasikim Eza Ha'ara, to be massing anything other than some kind of glimmer. Me'or Hashem, from the light of Hashem. Therefore, it's called basking in the Ziv Shechina, the Ziv, the ray of the Shechina. But Hashem Himself, remember, is referring to Atzilus. What's Gan Eden? What's Gan Eden? Gan Eden Elyon is Olam Abriya. Gan Eden Tachton is Olam Yitzira. So in this world, you're zoicha to touch at Silus. Olam Haba is just Bria. So he's trying to tell you here that the not the experience, but the reality of what's happening in this world when we're involved in Torah mitzvahs is infinitely more than what's happening in Gan Eden. No? Leis machshava divisa veiklau. Ki im ka'asher tefizim isbabeshes b'Torah mitzvah. Only what there is in Torah and mitzvahs can you be masikim. Eizahi tefizim. Umislabeshes b'kodesh baruch hu mamash v'yirais v'kodesh baruch hu kul echad. And he's completely enclosed in that. That is what we're doing. When we're involved in mitzvahs, we are bound up in the Olam HaAtzilus Mamash. We are bound up b'chvoid of Atzmo in the Rebbeinu Shalom himself. Masha Ein Kain, the neshamas in Gan Eden, even Gan Eden Elyon, they don't have access other than to a Ziva Shechina, which is Bria. The difference between Atzilus and Bria, by the way, is much more than the difference between Bria and Yetzirah and Asiyah. The difference in Atzilus and Bria is like is life and death. That really Misa, anything in Bria is called Misa, although it's called Misa from Yetzirah to Bria as well. It doesn't matter. But the difference between Atzilus and Bria is much more than all the other differences. Let's just finish off here. Va'af Torah nislabsha b'devarim tachtonim gashmiyim. Even though the Torah becomes enclosed in these very physical things, like the pishtan of the tzitzis and the ore of the tefillin, harizek machabek es hamelech. It's like you're hugging the king, derech moshel. Shein hefresh b'mailas is kavusoi v'dveikusoi b'melech. It doesn't matter when you're hugging someone, whether they're wearing a lot of clothes or whether they're wearing one garment, it's the same thing. Why? Because the garments dissolve on the one who's wearing them. Because the goof of the king is in them. There's no difference when you hug your friend who's dressed in a big duffel coat and a big sweater and tzitzis and full undershirts, yeah? Then when I'm giving you a hug like Michael, wearing your polo top right now. Same thing. Because the clothes dissolve. So you're right, these inyanim are melubish in clothes. They are very, very strongly clothed in the things of this world. That doesn't make a difference. And this is really the point. He said that if you hug the melech, but really that's a little different part of the moshel. So he brings the moshel back. He says, if the king hugs you with his arm, and his arm is enclosed, it doesn't matter how many garments his arm is in. Yeah, you're getting hugged by the king. Like his right hand hugs me. Shua Torah, Shahir Torah, Hanitna Biyamin, and that is the inyan of the Torah being given with the right hand. Shahi Bachin is Chesed Umayim, which is the concept of Chesed and Mayim. We just mentioned Mayim again to bring us back that idea of the Torah flows down from the highest place to the low place. And although it took on a different look, it's the same Torah, just like it's the same Hashem, just like the water looks different when it hits, it gets into that river down, thousands of miles down the mountains. Yeah. But it's the same water. It's just mixed up with some sediment. And when you touch that water, you're touching the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's the end of chapter Dalet. Any questions? No? Good. Okay, we should be Zocher to serve Hashem Mamash, but Emes La'amito, the Shema, and he should be Zocher to our divine service, our Avodah L'Shema, B'ezrat Hashem.
Amen.
Shmuel, I just saw in the Chassidus Maveres this morning.
Should I stop recording?
Yeah.